I also just wanted to say sorry about the audio. My mic was literally off the entire time, so I had to use the audio from my camera.
Hi guys, welcome back to my channel and happy new year. How you guys feeling? I'm feeling very nice. Like, look at me, I'm even doing the whole tied up, the tied up top thing in this economy. Yeah, love yourself. Who will come and love you? You can't answer me, can you? Anyway, I actually am having a pretty great time. I feel like this new year is going to be a great new year. Like, I don't know why, but I'm just sitting here and I'm like, this year is gonna it's gonna eat. Anyway, yeah, comment down below how you think this year is gonna go. Comment down your goals. My goals for this year are just to be consistent, like not even in YouTube, but like generally everything that I do, because I am like really the girl who every time I'm gonna be consistent, you guys are gonna see me, you guys are gonna, but like I always have this issue where like I just don't follow through on the promise. So that's something I'm gonna work on. But anyway, without further ado, you guys, I don't want to spend too much time before getting into today's video. So without further ado, let's get right into today's video. Now, for today's video, we are going to be talking about the following themes. We are going to be talking about the murder of elderly persons. If you feel uncomfortable about this topic, if you feel any way about this topic, please just click out now. I will see you again in another video. The second thing we're also going to be talking about is the theft and basically the abuse of trust of elderly persons. So if you don't feel comfortable about any of that, please click out and I will definitely see you guys in my next one. Furthermore, I'd also like to say that I mean no disrespect to anybody that I talk about in this video today. Anything that I discuss today has been gotten from online sources, and I will link all of my sources down below for those of you who would like to read more into it. And if anyone has actually any like extracurricular information, so to speak, please let us know, because that's why we're here. And without further ado, let us get right into today's video. Today we're going to be talking about a Kenyan man that went abroad to do bad manners, to say the least. To call it bad manners is to call it the least. We're going to be talking about Mr. Billy Chemirmir.
I just wanted to correct a few things because I realized some of the things were an issue in the video. It's not Billy Chemirmir, it's Chemirmir. Chemirmir, not Chem. Okay.
But today we're going to be talking about the case of Mr. Billy Chemirmir. He is a Kenyan man who immigrated to America, and so this place today is going to be taking place in America, the United States, the federal government of the United States of America. It's going to be taking place in America, specifically in Dallas, Texas. Dallas. If you guys watch Queen of the South, I just like how she says Dallas. We're going to be moving the shipment to Dallas. Period. But anyway, so who is Mr. Billy Chemirmir, if you might be wondering? So Billy is a Kenyan man, as I said, who was born on the 8th of December in 1972 in Eldama Ravine. Now, for those of you who don't know, Eldama Ravine is actually a village in Baringo County. Now, Billy was born to a reasonably like rich family. Well, he was rich for like the village standards of rich. How do I say it? And I'm not trying to say it with disrespect. Billy's father was actually a village chief, a long-serving village chief. So he had a lot of land. Actually, that's not even village standards of being wealthy. That's just being wealthy. Because if you have me, I don't have land. So let me shut up. So Billy's family was actually quite wealthy. His father was a village chief, and in so much as they didn't have like the ultra-modern type of like that type of aesthetic of wealth, his family was pretty wealthy if you're talking about an African village type of context. His father, like I said, was a long-serving village chief, and as such he had vast amount of land, a lot of cows, vegetation, etc. And with all of that, what comes with all of that? A lot of wives, because he needed to have a lot of wives to have many children so he can be able to plow his land. Something that happens a lot in like African villages, like where in like villages where the man, if he has a lot of land, he gets a lot of children so he can be able to plow the land. Plus, I think also having a lot of wives is like a sign of wealth itself, but that I'm not sure about that too much. So Billy's father had a lot of wives, and in turn he had a lot of children. Now Billy was actually one of 28 children. You guys may have 2 siblings. I'm like, how can I can't survive 28 siblings? I'm sorry. Me personally, I can't do it. But Billy seemed to thrive in this environment. He and his siblings, from what I could tell, really didn't have like so many squabbles or so many squallors, and everybody got along just fine. There was no reports of like serious familial tensions in Billy's early childhood. Now, the only issue that took place in Billy's childhood was the fact that Billy's father gave birth to Billy when he was really old and had a lot of his children when he was really old. So the issue now became that the children had to actually take care of their father. Billy would grow up being one of the only caregivers to his father, and by the time Billy was entering his like early adult years, late teen years, when he was a teenager, his father had actually hit the age of 100. So Billy now took on the full-on responsibility of 24/7 care for his 100-year-old father. So Billy, now because of all of this care that Billy took of his, Billy would be able to get a lot of work experience, let's say with regards to taking care of elderly people. By the time Billy was in his early adult years, he was fully experienced in taking care of elderly persons, because like I said, his father was now 100 years old and needed full-time care. Billy knew how to change older people, he knew how to help them, he knew how to basically handle them. And it's with this that Billy thought, you know what, why don't I just make this a career? Why don't I just make this a career for myself and, you know, make myself a career out of helping elderly persons, out of being a caregiver for elderly persons. Now, Billy would hear that this being a caregiver for elderly persons is a very like big thing up in America, because they have elderly people homes. I don't know if Kenya has that. I don't know, because my like grandparents have never been put in one, so I don't think like I've ever concerned myself with finding out. Anyway, that's a side note. Anywho, Billy decides that he's going to make this his full-time career, like I said, and he decides that he's going to find a way to move to America, which is where he was told that this is the place where this business would be booming for him and he'd get a lot of clients. Billy locates himself an agent to be able to help him to move over to America as an elderly person caregiver. It was unclear whether or not Billy actually got like any documentation for him to be an elderly care person, or was it just based off of work experience. But then again, you guys, this was like back in the day, so many people used to just get jobs on work experience, like according to what I've heard from many older people. I've had bare older people ask me like, why are you just educating yourself and you don't have work experience, girl? You should work. I got a job with that. And I'm like, so y'all just used to enter somewhere and be like, you know, I know how to fix cars, and they just give you the job. That's crazy. But Billy did manage to find himself an agency, and on top of finding himself an agency, he managed to move to America. And at first he stuck to the jobs that the agency had given him, and then he started branching out because he felt like the money that the agency was giving him wasn't enough to care for his expenses and care for his needs. Billy would go out and like, you know, offer to be someone's chaperone or go and work in restaurants. He would work a few odd jobs here and there, and during this time Billy got an idea. Billy thought to himself, why should he be waiting for the agency to call him up and tell him, oh, you know, go to this specific client, go to that specific client. And at the end of the day, not only would he have to go to the client, not only would he be restricted to the clients that the agency gave him, on top of that, when he did go to these clients, he would have to split the money he was making with the agents. So Billy just decides, why don't I just look for my own clients? So look for his own clients he did, and Billy actually quickly established his own clientele in Texas. He would charge $20 to $30 per hour, and by this time when he decided to enter this business, he started calling himself for some odd reason Benjamin Chepto, so everybody knew him as Benjamin Chepto. Billy would make enough money to the point where he decided to just stop working with the agency altogether, and he shifted himself to just basically being self-employed. During this time, Billy's life also really starts looking up, because he goes and he gets himself married. In 2004, a year from when he entered America, he goes and he gets himself married. However, sadly, this marriage would not last, because he would get divorced in 2006. But long story short, things are really looking up for Billy. On top of that, Billy decided to apply for permanent residency in America, and he actually got it. But he actually got permanent residency. So he got married, he got permanent residency, his business is thriving. In Gawaji, he got divorced from his girl. But that's a small kind of slide. And you know how people usually say like when good things are happening to them, they usually get like very on edge, because it's just like, buddy, come on now, buddy. Yeah, this is basically what happened to Billy. Things were going really great for him, and then he single-handedly carried his own hand to go and fuck up his own bag. Billy now starts to get in trouble with the law. And one thing about when you start getting in trouble with the law, it just never goes well. It never goes well because now you're on police radar and you not put your name in the system. Anywho, Billy was arrested twice in 2010 and in 2011 in Addison, Texas, which is in Dallas, for charges of intoxication. So that's basically being drunk. In 2012, he was actually arrested for 7 days for a family violence charge. That is like one of his ex-girlfriends actually called the cops on him and alleged that he was being violent towards her and abusive. So he was arrested for 70 days. On top of that, in June of 2016, Billy was arrested on a criminal trespass charge after showing up at an older living complex in Dallas. He was arrested for 70 days. He was arrested and he was supposed to spend 70 days in prison, but then he only ended up spending 12 because of good behavior. Wow. By the way, you guys, do people get released in Kenya on good behavior? Is that a thing that happens? Does that happen? I mean, I don't know. I'm genuinely curious. I'm not even trying to knock our country. I'm just asking. Anyway, Billy gets released. He's back into the world. And I think at this point, Billy realizes that he's moving a bit too crazy. So he decides to calm down. And from this point, we don't really hear much about Billy getting arrested. This is in 2016. And we don't hear much about Billy being arrested again. I think he learned... It seemed like he had learned his lesson. It seemed like he wanted to be a good boy. It seemed like he was tired of it. He doesn't want to be in the mix like that. He's gotten his residency permit. His business is thriving. Why should he start to move fucking crazy and be the only one who comes to single-handedly destroy his life? It don't make no sense, does it? Billy has now decided to live his life, his best life. He's been released after 12 days. He's decided to calm down. Something funny starts happening in his area in Dallas, Texas. During this time, a lot of elderly, well, not a lot, but a significant number, to the point where it was noticed, of elderly women kept on being found dead in their houses or in their complexes at their elderly people's home. They just kept on being found dead in very what is it called? Very weird situations. Like the deaths were mysterious because these women just seemed to drop dead without any explanation, anything. And yes, they were old women. Let's not get it twisted. The women were old, so it is expected that they were going to die because of old age. But the women died very suddenly. So you'd find somebody was like, okay, living their best life yesterday, laughing, enjoying life, everything is going well. Then the next day they're found dead in their house. Now this was suspicious, but like I said, these women were old. So it's just like, it's not that suspicious because everybody expected them to die. And on top of that, there was no signs of struggles in their house, no signs of, no signs of anybody who had entered their house and come and beaten them up or anything. But there was one distinct thing. All the women who were being found dead, all had been reported to have had missing jewelry. Now this was very peculiar, but at the same time it's just like they're older women. Maybe they lost it or something. Maybe these things got lost in, something happened and the jewelry got lost. But this was like a continuing issue throughout all of the women who had been found. Now among some of the women who were found was Miss Mary Brooks. Now who was Miss Mary Brooks? Now on January the 30th, 2018, 87-year-old Mary Brooks went to her local Walmart. Mary was an elderly woman who lived in Dallas, Texas, and she actually lived just down the road from her grandson and his pregnant wife. Now during this time, Mary actually decided to leave the house and go to Walmart by herself because she was sick and she couldn't ask her son to bring it over or his wife to bring it over because she didn't want to get them sick because his wife was pregnant. You get what I mean? Like she was sick, she didn't want her son to get sick and then give it to the pregnant wife, and then there's complications of the pregnancy. So Mary decided she wanted to go to the Walmart by herself. Mary gathers all her strength and decides to make her way down to the Walmart. Now as Mary was making or carrying on her business, she doesn't realize that there's somebody actually watching her. As Mary parked her car and got out and went into the Walmart, her stalker also got out of the car and followed Mary into the Walmart. Now the most interesting part is, as Mary was still in the Walmart, her stalker came outside, got in their car, and went and parked their car right next to Mary before Mary made it out of the Walmart. Now the stalker would wait in their car for Mary to come out of the Walmart before stalking her or following her all the way home to her house in Dallas, Texas. This was the last time Mary would be seen or heard from, and like I said, she lived down the road from her grandson and his girlfriend and his wife, which means that all of them were very close, which means that they would have been expecting a call from Mary, even if it's not a visit. She used to call every day to just chat with them and have a talk with them because them and Mary were very close. However, a few hours go by, a day goes by, and I think at 2 days, something was suspicious. Mary's grandson calls his mother, who is Mary's daughter, and she's like, hey mom, and he's like, hey mom, have you heard from, Granny? Nobody has heard from Granny. His wife has not heard from Granny. He hasn't heard from Granny. And his mother has not heard from Granny. So Mary's daughter tells her son to go and have a checkup on Mary. So Mary's grandson walks up to Mary's door, and as soon as he arrives at the door, he realizes something is wrong instantly because the door was not locked. So he enters the house, he starts calling for Mary, and it was at this point that he saw his grandmother lying on the ground dead. Now as soon as he sees this, he calls 911. As soon as he calls 911 folk tell him to try and do CPR for Mary. Now sadly, Mary would not make it, and by the time police officers were like getting to the scene, they actually told him, it's too late, son, she's gone, it's done, she's dead. Now police officers say they looked around and there really didn't seem anything to, like, there was nothing suspicious going on. Mary seemed to have died of natural causes, there was no struggles in the house, and so basically everything was fine. Mary's grandson also didn't notice anything on the first day. He was like, you know what, my granny is dead. He was dealing with a lot of emotion, so all he could do was call his mother. They both organized for a mortuary to come and take Mary's body to the mortuary, and they were just dealing with the loss. Now the next day though, Mary's grandson and Mary's daughter came over to the house to clean everything up, basically to make sure that there was nothing, like the place didn't look bad. They just wanted to keep the place looking good because according to them, Mary really loved her home. So they wanted to clean everything up and make everything look good. So as they were cleaning, they now realized that they couldn't find a few of Mary's very important jewelry. And it's at this point that Mary's grandson is just like, hold on, even yesterday when I came here and found, Granny on the ground dead, God rest her soul, she wasn't wearing any jewelry. And not only was she not wearing jewelry, she wasn't wearing one specific piece of jewelry that she used to wear all the time, which was her wedding ring. Immediately they say this is suspicious. Immediately they say this is a red flag. They tell the police, but the police couldn't find any DNA evidence to prove that there was someone else in the house. They couldn't find any signs of struggle in the house to prove that maybe something had happened to Mary Brooks other than death by natural causes. And the theft was just a coincidence, honestly speaking. It was suspicious, but at the end of the day, it's just like, there's nothing contrary, no footprints, no nothing to prove that somebody else could have been in the house and done something to Mary. So the police leave it at that. They leave the case unsolved. It's clear something may have happened, but they don't have evidence to prove that. Now the second woman, and the woman who would blow this thing off its entire roof, was Miss Mary Bartel. The first woman we've just discussed is called Mary Brooks, and the second woman, who is not the most important but the most significant in terms of moving the case forward, her name was Mary Bartel. So there's Mary Brooks, ule wa kwanza, this is now Mary Bartel. So who was Mary Bartel? Now Mary Bartel was also another elderly lady who lived in the same area of Dallas. Like Mary Bartel, unlike Mary Brooks, actually lived at an elderly person's home. She didn't really live by herself like Mary Brooks did. So she had neighbors. Like she had neighbors that could help, neighbors that could hear everything going on, neighbors that would come in. On top of that, Mary Bartel also had a very significant difference between her and Mary Brooks. Mary Bartel actually had a pacemaker. Now what is a pacemaker? So a pacemaker is something that like some old people get if you have like a heart in your heart. And if you have like a heart, Kwani, what do we all have? If you have like issues with your heart and everything, they would put for you a pacemaker to make sure like your heart is continuously beeping. That's what I understood when I read it. May never sat here and claim that I am good at medicine. I'm not a medical student. Okay. Anyway, so Mary Bartel had a pacemaker, and that fact about her is going to be very relevant as this case continues. And that's basically who she is. She's an elderly lady living in an elderly home who has a pacemaker. Very different to Mary Brooks, but the only thing they have in common is that she was an elderly lady living in the same kind of Dallas, Texas. She lived in Plato. I think Mary Brooks lived in Fresno. Mary Bartel's case takes place on March 19th. Now, on March 19th, Mary says that heard a knock on the door. When she opened the door, she saw a man in gloves that apparently from some sources he claimed to be a maintenance man, but Mary didn't buy this. She was like, no, I don't believe this. So Mary tries to close the door. According to the statement, Mary says that when she tried to close the door, the man actually now starts fighting with her against her own door, and he now tells Mary that she should stop fighting him and just accept it because she wouldn't be able to overpower him. He was like basically telling her like, there's no need to fight, I'm stronger than you. So Mary decides to not fight this man and allows this man to come in because she was like, you know what, he's actually right. Like, I am an older girl. Like, I don't have what it takes to be fighting this man up and down. I don't. So Mary decides to let this man into her house, and the man with the gloves enters into the house and tells Mary to lie down on the bed. As soon as Mary lied down on the bed, tell me why this man literally didn't get up on the same bed that Mary was on, and he begins to suffocate Mary, poor Mary Bartel, with a pillow. He suffocates Mary Bartel with a pillow, and as he finishes suffocating Mary Bartel with a pillow, the man now decides to stand up, and while Mary Bartel is on the bed, now presumably dead, he now decides to go and ransack Mary Bartel's house. He goes, collects all of Mary Bartel's jewelry, collects all the things that basically would be able to be pawned off at a pawn shop, and get him some money. Now, what he didn't know is that Mary Bartel wasn't dead. Mary Bartel had a what? Like I told you guys, she had a pacemaker. And what did the pacemaker do for Miss Mary Bartel? The pacemaker made sure for Miss Mary Bartel that her heart wouldn't stop beating. So yes, you suffocated Miss Mary Bartel, but did her heart stop beating? No, it didn't. And when the man left the house, Mary Bartel would like shout. Basically, she screamed, and the people who also lived in the care home came to her aid. Her friends came to her aid. Her workout buddy, who she usually works out with, came to her aid. But I also read some sources that say that the workout friend just came. Like, she wasn't, like, she didn't hear any screams or anything. She just came, but I don't know. Those are the two that I saw. Anywho, so Mary's friends came, called the police for her, and Mary was basically saved. And the fact that Mary didn't die was very instrumental to catching the person who did this to Mary. Mary was able to give an account of how this man looked. Tell them the color of this man's skin, his facial features, what he was wearing, his height, his average weight, things that would be able to help the police catch him. And on top of Mary giving her description, Mary's friends were also very much so ready to catch this man, because they said, you're not gonna come up here and play with my good sis. So one of Mary's friends, so as the police were going around asking the people in the elderly home if they had seen anything or heard anything, they said, I didn't see anything today. But that doesn't mean I haven't seen anything, period. You know? So basically the people who are staying at the elderly home with Mary, let's refer to them as that, they basically, one of them told the police that she had actually been seeing a specific Nissan Altima outside, like parked outside of this elderly home complex a couple of times. And she said it was a couple of times enough for her to do what? To write down the plate number. You guys don't play with old people. One thing, even my granny is like this, you guys. One thing about my granny, when she sees something suspicious, she's just like, not on my watch. Not on my watch. So one of the old ladies had actually taken the phone number plate, the number plate to the car she had seen parked outside of this elderly home. She said, this is suspicious as fuck. And I'll be damned if I leave this man or whoever the owner of this car is, I'll be damned if I leave them to just do rubbish and run amok up in this place. He actually took the number plate of this Nissan Altima, and it's at this point she decides to give it to the police. She gives the Nissan Altima number to the police, and the police are just like, okay, this is going to be such a huge help. And a huge help it was. The police then go back to the police. All of this is happening within like the same 2 days, you guys, like 2 days after this whole Mary Bartel incident. The police go back to the police station, check out the number plate of the car, check how it was bought, etc., who bought it, etc. And it's at this point that the police find out who bought this car. It was a man by the name of Tom Omdeng. Now, it's unclear if the car was registered under Tom Omdeng's like number plate, but when I was looking, like when I was listening to the the trial, like the case, it seemed like the fact that Tom bought this car made it a bit difficult to link it back to Mr. Billy. So they had to first check with Tom and ask Tom, like, are you the owner of this car? I'm not sure if it's exactly at this point, but this did come up as an issue. So let's discuss it in this context of who is like ownership of the car. However, when they now decide to get in contact with Tom, Tom tells them like, hey, I'm not the one who owns the car. Like, yes, I bought it. Yes, I did get involved with the purchase, but I'm not the one who owns the car. The police ask him, well, if not you, Tom, who? Who the fuck is it, Tom? Who owns this car? And Tom is just like, I bought it on behalf of my friend. They say, who's the friend? Billy Chemirmir. That's who the fucking friend is. Now the police are like, huh, who's Billy Chemirmir? And that's when the police now go and have a look at who Billy Chemirmir is, and he's now looking very similar to who? The picture they were given by Miss Ma'am, right? Right. But like I said again, there are some sources that say this is when they question Tom about the ownership of the car. There's some that say that this isn't the point, this isn't at this point, but I'm just trying to apply logic. It would make sense that they would ask about the ownership of the car at this point. So that's why I'm discussing it at this point. So you don't come and say, but this did basically happen. They did check the ownership of the car. Anyway. They discover that the actual owner of this car is Billy Chemirmir. Moral of the story. They find out that Billy Chemirmir is the owner of this car. Look at Billy Chemirmir. Look at the description they've been given. They say, 1 + 1 is 2, not 17. This is the guy. This is the guy. Right? Right. They now make their way on. Now, because they don't have anything other than a physical description of Billy Chemirmir, they now decide they're going to observe this guy. They're like, hey, we're going to check this guy out. Make sure this guy is not doing anything suspicious, because you can't just waltz in there and arrest him, because all of this evidence is what? Circumstantial at best. So they decide we're going to observe Mr. Billy Chemirmir for some time, but we're not going to arrest him just yet. Now, police decide to put Billy on 24-hour surveillance. And it's at this point that as they're watching him, Billy comes home from a long day at work. Billy comes home, and as he's now arrived home, he takes some time. Obviously, he's doing his things in the house. And then at a point, Billy decides to get out of the house and go and throw something away in the bin. Obviously, as he does this, police are outside watching him because he's been put on 24-hour surveillance. As he walks over to his own dustbin, this is when police notice Billy throwing away something very peculiar. A very peculiar looking red like jewelry box. I'll put a picture of the jewelry box here right now. But Billy is seen to be throwing this out. Naturally, police are like, that doesn't belong to that man. That does not belong to that man. So police decide to go and have a look at the jewelry box and see if they can find anything out from the jewelry box. As police go to the jewelry box, they now realize that this jewelry box actually doesn't belong to Billy, and it belongs to a specific woman, elderly woman might I add, a specific elderly woman named Lulu Harris. How did they discover this? First of all, Lulu Harris had named her jewelry box. I didn't know people just name their stuff outside of school. Well, police ask themselves, who is Harris? And as they do this, they call up the center, ask them to locate a woman by the name of Lulu Harris who may be living in that same area. Police do this and they locate the whereabouts of a woman named Lou Harris. After they look into the system, they find out that Lou Harris was actually a woman that was living in Dallas, in that area of Dallas. So they decided to pay Lou Harris a little visit to her house just to make sure she was okay, and that, you know, maybe she had even given this thing to this Mr. Mans. Maybe they were just making a big fuss out of nothing because she had actually provided this man with this thing, with this jewelry box. So they make their way over to Lou Harris's that evening, and police knock on Lou Harris's door a few times, and as they're knocking, they quickly realize that nobody is answering the door. The police continue to knock, nobody answered the door. Now, police obviously decide to bash the door in so they can be able to have a look at whether or not Miss Lou Harris is actually inside, if she's in the house or whatever is going on, is she okay? And as soon as police got into that house, they quickly realized that Miss Lou Harris was not answering the door. Why? Because Miss Lou Harris was actually dead in her house. Immediately, police are like, this is a serious red flag. Not only was it a red flag, it was also a green flag to their suspicions of Mr. Billy Chemirmir. Police rush back to Mr. Billy's house and arrest Mr. Billy Chemirmir for the suspected murder of Miss Lou Harris. Now, as the other police have gone to arrest Mr. Chemirmir, these other ones that are looking around the house of Miss Lou Harris now come across some form of evidence that Mr. Chemirmir would be involved in the death of Miss Lou Harris. But by this point, they don't actually know that this is actually some form of evidence that he could be involved in her death. Why? Because this links back to the case of Mary Brooks, of which remains an unsolved murder. That's the first lady we discussed, who came from Walmart. Now, in the house of Miss Lou Harris, they found a receipt from the same Walmart that Miss Lou Harris had gone to on the suspected day of her murder. So Miss Lou Harris had visited the same Walmart as Miss Mary Brooks, came home, and it's suspected that that is the day that she had passed away, sadly. So after finding this receipt, police decided to make their way to Walmart. Why? Because they wanted to have a look at the CCTV footage to find out if anyone could have actually followed Miss Lou Harris home. As they're looking at this CCTV footage, who do they see? Mr. Billy Chemirmir, which only reinforces further the fact that Mr. Billy Chemirmir was actually to blame for all this. So he's like now in hot soup, because the CCTV footage showed him at that place, showed him at another like aisle checking his things out the same time that Miss Lou Harris was checking her stuff out. However, Chemirmir would leave before Miss Lou Harris actually left the store, and instead of going like home directly, Billy was seen to, first of all, yes, he left the store. That's not a lie. Then he looked like he was leaving, like completely in his car. He was leaving the Walmart parking area, but that wasn't true, because he was seen to wait for Miss Lou Harris to leave the store and then turn his car in her direction for her house and follow her behind to her house. Now, police obviously, or anybody even in their right senses, would conclude that, hey, yeah, you followed that lady home and you killed that lady. That poor old lady died at your hands. And Billy Chemirmir, as they brought all this evidence to him, imagine he just denied it. Imagine he denied it. He said that, no, it's not me. It's not me. And even when evidence was brought showing him at that scene, he was like, Kwani, I can't go to the supermarket. Ama? Kwani, no, can't I go to the supermarket? And when they were like, did you follow her home? He's like, no, I just used that route, Kwani. Like, he had an explanation for every single thing, and police just had a feeling that he had murdered Miss Lou Harris. And the thing is, this now meant that he had to go to trial for the murder of Miss Lou Harris. Now, irrespective of the fact that Billy was refusing to accept the fact that he had killed Miss Lou Harris, police were already onto him, and they decided that not only had he killed Miss Lou Harris, but they also decided that he had also attempted to kill Miss Bartel. Now, because of this, they decided to open up an investigation into the mysterious, several, might I add, mysterious deaths of the women within that area of Dallas, Texas. The police now really decide that maybe he could be responsible for the deaths in this area. Like I said, the deaths had been very many at this point. They reopened an investigation into the death of 750 older women's death, and they were like, if they find any evidence linking this man to these deaths, he's gonna go down for him. He's gonna go down for him. So as police announced that they were reopening these investigations, they arrested Mr. Billy Chemirmir, and they would hold him at in prison and set his bail at $1 million. Plus, I don't even know who was going to bail him out at the price of $1 million. That's a lot of money, you guys. Like, what? The police reopened the murders into the 750 women, and obviously as they're investigating the 750 women, that means they have to be looking at Mr. Billy Chemirmir, his phone records, his internet searches, etc. And tell me why they found a lot. Now, the police would find out through the records of Billy's phone that he was actually at Walmart the day that Miss Mary Brooks, remember the first woman we talked about who was stalked home from Walmart, that he was actually at the same location as her when she was at the Walmart. The phone records also show that Mr. Chemirmir not only left Walmart but followed Miss Brooks right behind her car all the way back to Miss Brooks's home. It also showed that he was in the area when Miss Brooks died. Obviously the phone is not going to show you exactly where he was standing, because it definitely depends on like where the phone pings, like where it pings you, because there's like one receiver, you get what I mean. It's not going to show exactly where he was standing, but he was in that vicinity when Miss Brooks was being attacked and when Miss Brooks is said to have passed on. On top of that, they now went to look into the phone records of, you know, where he was when Lou Harris died, same environment. Where he was when Miss Mary Bartel was attacked, same environment. So police are really gathering evidence. Same time that all of this is going down, Mr. Billy Chemirmir, still holding very true to the fact that he didn't do anything, was also caught with very, very questionable internet search history. Now, when the police would have a look at Mr. Billy Chemirmir's search history, or well, where he had been, the websites he had been visiting, they actually found out that he had an account on the website called OfferUp. OfferUp is like an e-commerce place like Gigi or Jumia or stuff like that, where people go on there and sell their stuff, like sell things that they want people to buy. So on this account, what was Billy selling? Jewelry. The same lost jewelry that had been reported by the families of several deceased elderly women. In fact, they found out that the day after Lou Harris had died and the day after Miss Mary Brooke had died, Billy was on there selling their rings. So he had bare balls, because he even had the balls to post them on the website. And these rings apparently were very, very, like, it wasn't hard to tell whose rings these were, because according to the families, these were family like heir. Billy has now been caught at the Walmart. He has also now been caught selling these rings on the website, and he's still there denying it. Now, I feel like had Billy actually accepted to just agree to the case that he killed Miss Lou Harris, maybe this wouldn't have turned out to be an entire reopening of investigations, but you know, he didn't. And so police continue to dig. Police continue to go into the archives of women who had been killed, and that is when police come across the woman Miss Martha Williams. Now, Martha was also living at the same complex as Miss Mary Bartel. That is the woman who had been attacked, but because of her pacemaker, she didn't die. Martha had been living at the same place. Now, on the 7th of March, only 2 days before the attack of Miss Mary Bartel, Martha had gone out to run some errands. Now, this would be the last time Martha was heard from. No one heard from her or saw her again until she was found dead in her apartment. Now, after finding Martha and taking her body to the mortuary, her family members, her 2 daughters to be specific, her 2 daughters did go over to her house and clean up. As they were cleaning, they found the same thing as the other cases. They found missing jewelry, and unlike the other cases, however, Martha's daughter also found that Martha had a pillow with blood on it, with like a blood stain on it, which was very suspicious. So they call up police, and the police obviously come over, get the pillow, put it in a safety bag, and they decide to go and basically check out the DNA that would be on this pillow. And the DNA was a match to who? Mr. Billy Chemirmir. They found a fingerprint on the pillow which matched Mr. Billy Chemirmir to Martha's house, basically speaking. On top of that, Martha seems to have actually fought her attacker, and as they were looking at her body they found DNA of her attacker under Martha's nails because of scratching, etc. And the DNA under Martha's nails also matched the DNA of Mr. Billy Chemirmir. So basically, Billy is here telling people that no, it's not true, I didn't do anything. Meanwhile, Martha's body, God rest her soul, is telling the police all the stories that they need to know. They don't even have to ask Billy anymore, because Martha is telling them everything they need to know. Now, furthermore, at this point, apparently Billy's car at some point had been in an accident of some sort, and the police had decided to impound it. So at the impound, police had apparently looked into Mr. Billy Chemirmir's car just to see what was inside. And as they looked into Mr. Billy Chemirmir's car, tell me what they found? They found the keys to Martha's apartment inside Mr. Billy Chemirmir's car. On top of that, they found a pair of surgical gloves with Martha's DNA inside Mr. Billy Chemirmir's car. So now Billy is looking guilty for Miss Lou Harris's death, for Miss Martha's death, and very much so from the first woman, Miss Mary, not Bartel, Miss Mary's death, not Mary Bartel, the other Mary. Now, as all of this is unraveling, police just seem to be finding so many women that honestly have something linking them to Mr. Billy Chemirmir. So now bare names are just being added to the list of the women that Mr. Billy Chemirmir is alleged to have killed. Now, in May of 2019, Billy was now alleged to have killed 12 elderly women in the area of Plateau and Fresco in Dallas, Texas. Texas. Furthermore, a lawsuit had actually been filed against one of the elderly homes for the death of some women that were there. And when this lawsuit was filed, the police looked into the women's death and found that some of these women actually seemed to have been killed by Mr. Billy Chemirmir. And because of this discovery, he now had 18 counts of murder upon his name by just the end of the month of May. Now, the trial of Mr. Billy Chemirmir was interesting because on the 24th of June 2021, the Dallas County District Attorney John Crusoe told the families of all the 18 victims that they were actually going to try Mr. Billy Chemirmir twice. They were not going to try him like once concerning all of the murders, because according to him, he wanted to get a 2-time verdict of life imprisonment without the possibility of parole, which meant that either way he was going to die in a Dallas County prison. That's literally what this man said. This man said he wanted to make sure that Billy Chemirmir died that Billy Chemirmir's life was going to inevitably end in a Dallas County jail. Now, Billy would go to trial for the murder of Lou Harris because one, there was very much evidence. There was a lot of evidence linking him to the murder of Lou Harris. Not only was he in possession of her stolen artifact, on top of that, it's very clear that he stalked her from Walmart, Miss Lou Harris, and so police decided they were going to prosecute on this. Now, the key witness for the police was actually Miss Mary Bartel, the woman who he attempted to strangle and he thought was dead, but due to the fact that she had a pacemaker, she didn't die. Yeah, her. So police decided that they were going to use her as their star witness. However, sadly, Miss Mary Bartel did die before the commencement of the trial against Mr. Billy Chemirmir. But fear not, because Miss Girl was smart. Miss Girl actually recorded her statement to make sure that either way, this man would end up in jail and he would not be able to get away with what he did. Anyway, so the trial of Mr. Billy Chemirmir for the death of Miss Lou Harris would commence on November 12, 2021, after being postponed twice. I think it was postponed specifically because of coronavirus. Another witness was was his friend Tom, who had bought him the car. Now, according to what Tom said, the reason that it seemed like he had owned the car is because Mr. Billy Chemirmir actually called Tom up and asked Tom, hey, can you please help me and buy a car? So according to what Tom says, Tom thought that this helping him to buy a car actually meant that the both of them were going to buy a car together. But he says that when they reached like the place for buying the car, Mr. Billy Chemirmir just gave Tom some money and asked him to please purchase for him the car. And after the purchase was made, Mr. Billy Chemirmir gave Tom some money to just say thank you, etc. And basically, Tom didn't own the car. He thought he was going to co-own the car, but that was not the case. Long story short, the prosecution really did make some good arguments. So let's look at what happened at the trial. Now, something funny. Now, on the first day of trial, one of Billy Chemirmir's counsel, like one of his lawyers, actually didn't show up to trial because the previous day he had been arrested for soliciting sex. Yeah, as in he was arrested while he was trying to get like a prostitute to fuck the previous day before the trial. So that was who was representing him. Ain't nothing wrong with that. But I mean, it's a bit crazy that the day before that you're supposed to be going to represent someone, you decide to go out and, I mean, you know what, let me not judge, because who is to say, you know what, who is to say? You guys, you can't say it, you know, because tomorrow I'm going to do something, I'm not gonna get it in there, you know. But I mean, it's sad that he got arrested because basically I think in that state prostitution is illegal or something, and that's why he was arrested for trying to solicit sex. But long story short, he was arrested for trying to solicit sex. So when the date of the trial came around the next day, Mr. Billy Chemirmir was literally there with one counsel, of which, you know what, that's kind of not fair. Like, he's a horrible human being, but I believe that if you're going to court, you should be able to have like you should be able to have proper representation, so that usiwahi kuja hapa kusema tulikuonea. It's like, no, everybody was there for you. But anyway, long story short, his lawyer was still able to make it, I think, at some point, but I think he came like the next day or something, but that's besides the point. Anywho, now during the trial, it was revealed that Billy had actually been selling the jewelry that he was stealing from the women to a specific consistent buyer. He had been selling it to a store called Diamond and Gold Exchange, and the manager said that from the period from 2015 to 2018, he had actually sold them jewelry worth $91,000. $91,000, 2015 to 2018. And mind you, he only got caught doing all of this in 2021. So he was making bare cash, because that wasn't the only place that he was selling jewelry, the jewelry that he was stealing from. He was selling it online, like I told you guys, on that app called OfferUp, like that website called OfferUp. So Billy was making bare cash from the jewelry that he was stealing from these women. The manager said that he was like a consistent guy who used to bring jewelry and stuff. He was like someone consistent who would bring jewelry and stuff for them to be able to sell. They also discussed, it was also revealed at trial that the police had actually looked into Mr. Billy Chemirmir's car and found a pair of keys that fit Miss Lou Harris's house, like the house door for entrance, perfectly. So where did you get the keys if you didn't do it, Billy? All this time Billy is still saying he didn't do it. He's still saying he didn't do it. Furthermore, police also provided evidence of the fact that he was selling these women's rings online. They were able to get pictures of the rings online, and they were able to also get family members to confirm that these jewelry items belonged to their grandmothers. And it was very interesting for him to try and deny it, because according to the family members, these like jewelries were very unique to their family. Like, these were family heirlooms type of jewelry. So there was really no way that Billy Chemirmir could come and sit here and say, oh, I don't know, I got them from Sijui where, or from Sijui who. Coupled with the fact that his phone signals placed him exactly at the places where these murders took place during the time when the women were said to have died. Furthermore, he was seen physically by these women. Miss Mary Bartel physically saw him and identified him. On top of that, people also saw his car consistently in the areas before these women had been reported to have been killed. And also, it's very interesting to note that these women, during all this time, the ones that were dying were elderly women, and he was an elderly caretaker. So when people used to see him on these premises, nobody suspected him. He had like he could just access these areas with nobody asking or battering any eyelashes, which made it very easy for him to conduct these murders and these thefts, because he was never a suspect. No one ever looked at him and thought, yeah, he's the guy killing women, he's the guy killing these older elderly ladies. Anyway, so like I said, things were really not looking up for Mr. Billy Chemirmir, and the fact that he kept on lying and trying to play it off like the police are trying to frame him. He even at a point tried to do the whole as a black man thing, and it was just like, guy, like, we know you did it. We know you did this. Things really weren't looking up for him, and his team knew that things were not looking up for him, to the point where they really tried the most ridiculous argument I've ever heard. Now, Billy's team was in deep, like I said, and they were stressed out at this point. Number one, the trial really didn't kickstart so well because one of his, legal counsel was really caught out here soliciting sex, which isn't a bad thing, but it's just not a good look, It wasn't a good look, I'm not gonna lie. I won't lie to you. But on top of that, they have no evidence to prove that Billy was not, in the vicinity when all this was happening. He had no alibis, no key witnesses to testify as to his innocence. They really were just relying on, this is unfair, this isn't fair. That was the argument, this is unfair. So basically what they attempted to do is they attempted to deter the judgment from being left up to the jury, and they asked the judge for a direct verdict. The judge who was presiding over the case refused to do this, and when she refused to give a direct verdict, they asked for a lesser sentence if Mr. Billy Chemirmir was found to be guilty, because they knew that he was going to be found to be guilty. So basically what it seemed like they were doing is they were just trying to secure the bag. Like, it's like, if he's going to go to prison, at least let him not go to prison for very long, because there's some cases where the situation is so dire that people know you're going to go to jail, so your lawyers try their best to at least get you the best deal that they can get you. But like, guys, we're talking about the death of like elderly ladies. Like, nobody, elderly people are like the children of adults. Like, we just don't, nobody plays that game. Everybody refused every single type of plea these lawyers made on behalf of Billy Chemirmir, and they waited for the jury's verdict. So the jury went into deliberation at 3:45 on the 19th of November 2021. Apparently, after all of this, the jury was still not convinced beyond reasonable doubt that Mr. Billy Chemirmir could have committed the murder of Miss Lou Harris. Now, the reason behind this was because although this court case was about Miss Lou Harris, the prosecution had really focused a lot on the death of on the statement of Miss Mary Bartel and on the death of the First Mary herself. So they didn't talk as much about Miss Lou Harris, which really led it to be like, we are discussing the death of Lou Harris, but we've so much so all the evidence we've seen is from the death of other people. So one of the jury members said that they just weren't convinced, and without the unanimous decision, the jury reported back to the judge and said they were hopelessly deadlocked as to the decision. When the case was retried again, when the case was retried on the 25th of April 2022, it only took 25th, 26th, 27th, 28th, 3 days, and the jury found Mr. Billy Chemirmir guilty for the capital crime of murder against Miss Lou Harris, and he was sentenced to life in prison. Now, although he was already sentenced to life in prison, Mr. Chemirmir also was now taken again to court, because I told you the county had, the county attorney general had, the county's attorney had said they're going to try him twice, and try him twice they did, honey. Now, taken to trial for the death of the first woman, Miss Mary Brooks, on October 3rd, 2022. He was convicted on the 7th of October again for the death of Miss Mary Brooks, and he was given another life sentence. Anyway, so after his conviction of the death of Miss Mary Brooks, the state decided not to prosecute him anymore. They actually barred any prosecution, like they actually barred any other cases coming towards him, because the fact of the matter is he now had 2 life sentences. So sadly, the other 16 families of the 16 other victims never really got their justice like in court, because of the fact that the state said we can't try this man again. Like, we can't give him like 6 life sentences. It doesn't make any sense. He's already going to die in these prisons, because according to what I could gather, there was no opportunity of parole. Yes, the families of the other victims were sad, but similarly at the same time, they technically had gotten justice, even though it wasn't justice under the name of their specific familial victim. Now, what do I think? I think they should have tried him. Like, because it's like, for me, like, why should Kwani, let's just, yeah, guilt him of everything. It's his fault. All these people are dead because of him, and he should know. He should never forget. Like, I would have wanted him to go to trial. But anyway, and yeah, we are where we are today. Mr. Billy Chemirmir is still in prison. I remain unsure whether he will have an opportunity to come forward and, you know, appeal his decision. I don't know if he will. I think he's able to appeal his decision, because it will be a bit vindictive if you're like, you can't appeal. But the facts of the case are very much against him. I don't know who would have tried to that degree to frame him, to even get him following these women. Like, it's, you know, even if you're being framed, you followed these women home. How could we frame you when you are framing yourself? You're in the frame. When you cook a picture, it's not us. You get what I mean? So yeah, I mean, I would like to see if he would try to appeal exactly what... Fucking hell. I mean, if he tries to appeal, I'll be there to see exactly what his argument would be, because I honestly, I really doubt that he would appeal on the basis of like, oh, it's not me, it's not, I didn't do it. Because like, guy, it is you. We can see you. It's you right there. It's not the neighbor's kids. It's literally you. But yeah, tell me what you think about this case down below. Do you think anaonewa? Do you think somebody... I don't believe so. But if you do think that alikuwa anaonewa, please comment down below. We'd love to hear what you have to say. So I will be finishing the rest of this makeup look in the next video. I'll see you guys next week with another one. Bye.